I stepped into exam room 2 of the Westwood Medical Centre, clipboard in hand, and immediately felt a shift in the air. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, and the faint smell of antiseptic lingered in a small climate-controlled space. My name is Marissa. I'm 29, and I've worked as a nurse here for almost 5 years. I've seen a lot: routine, physicals, emergencies, awkward slip-ups. But I never quite had a day like this today. I was assigned to assist with a standard cardiovascular follow-up for a patient named Mr. Harron. He was 54, a quiet, reserved man who usually came in for routine blood pressure checks and monitoring after his mild heart scare last year. I'd seen him before, nothing unusual, but this morning. As I glanced over his file and walked through the door, something about him, about the whole room, felt off. He was already sitting on the exam bed propped up against the elevated backrest, wearing a thin cotton gown. His posture was stiff and his fingers fidgeted in his lap. When he looked at me, his expression was unreadable, nervous perhaps, or just distracted. "Good morning, Mr. Harlan." I greeted him warmly. "How are you feeling today?" He nodded once. "Fine, just a little tired." His voice was low and uneven, and I noticed the way his eyes darted around the room before settling on the floor. I smiled gently, trying to put him at ease. "We'll just get you prepped for the doctor. Won't take long." I moved toward the monitor and began checking the equipment as I adjusted the wires and smoothed the sheets beneath him. My eyes unintentionally dropped through the thin gown. I caught sight of something that made me freeze. It wasn't intentional, it was just the way the gown had fallen open slightly, but I saw enough to feel heat rise to my cheeks. I turned away quickly, be professional. "Marissa," I reminded myself, "this is anatomy. It's normal. You're trained for this." Still, I felt a twinge of unease I couldn't shake. I cleared my throat. "Let's get you into position for the doctor," as I stepped forward again to adjust the blanket covering his legs. He shifted a little too quickly. The gown slipped off one side, completely exposing him fully. I gasped reflexively and turned my head away. "Oh, I'm sorry," I stammered, trying to keep my tone calm. Let me help you with this." He fumbled to cover himself with the edge of the blanket, visibly mortified. "I didn't mean." "It's all right," I said quickly. "Let's just focus on your exam." Before either of us could say anything else, the door creaked open behind me. A voice followed, casual but curious. "Oops. Sorry, didn't realize this room was in use." It was Lena, another nurse, popping her head in. She paused briefly, eyes scanning the scene, then quickly excused herself, shutting the door behind her with a soft click. Mr. Harlan's face was flushed and he stared at his lap, avoiding eye contact. "I'm really sorry," he mumbled. I tried to focus to remain composed. "It happens," I said, though my mind was still racing. "Let's finish getting you ready," as I turned to grab a fresh set of linens. I felt something light brush against my hand. I froze his hand. It had grazed mine. Maybe it was accidental, but it lingered just long enough to make me doubt. I slowly pulled my hand back. There was a strange energy in the air now, like something unsaid had been shared. I kept my eyes on the supplies in front of me, doing my best to keep my voice steady. "We're nearly done," I said, attaching the last lead to the monitor. Just then, the door opened again this time. Thankfully, it was Dr. Patel, clipboard in hand. "Everything okay in here?" he asked with his usual friendly demeanour. "Yes, doctor," I said immediately, stepping back from the bed. "Mr. Harlan is ready for you." I didn't wait for further instructions. I exited, quickly closing the door behind me, and exhaling hard. My hands were still trembling slightly back at the nurse's station. I tried to shake it off. I reminded myself it was probably nothing, just a weird moment. Still, it stayed with me as I went about my other duties, taking vitals, updating charts, checking in with new patients. Later that afternoon, I got a message on my work tablet from the front desk patient. "Harlan has requested Nurse Marissa specifically for his follow-up visit tomorrow." I stared at the screen for a few seconds. Why me? Had I done something wrong? Was he just embarrassed and wanted continuity, or was there something else at play, that accidental touch, the lingering look? It all seemed too intentional. Now that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I lay in bed, replaying the scene, not just the accidental exposure, but the way he looked at me when I helped him, the way his hand had lingered. And worse, how I hadn't stopped him, how I hadn't said anything. I told myself it was nothing, that I was being paranoid. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. And the next morning, as I stood in front of his exam room again, my heart beat just a little faster than usual. By the time I reached the clinic the next morning, I had already rehearsed a dozen different ways to handle Mr. Harron, be professional, be distant, keep it focused. I wore my most neutral expression, tied my hair up a little tighter, and reminded myself I was a nurse, not a character, in one of those awkward patient anecdotes that get passed around on night shifts. The morning moved slowly. I checked vitals, organised discharge paperwork, answered calls from patients needing medication refills. I avoided glancing at the schedule too often, but my eyes kept drifting toward the clock anyway, at exactly 10:05 a.m. The front desk sent me a direct message patient. Harron, in exam room 4. He's asked for you specifically there. It was again requesting me not just once, but now twice. I inhaled sharply and stood clipboard in hand this time. I promised myself I would make everything unmistakably clear. I knocked gently before entering. "Good morning," I said briskly, stepping into the room. Mr. Harlan sat on the exam table, already in a hospital gown. His posture was relaxed too, relaxed, legs swinging slightly, hands folded calmly in his lap, like he was waiting for a casual chat instead of a medical evaluation. His grey-flecked hair was slicked back neatly, and there was something different in his expression today. Not nervous, not embarrassed, controlled. "I'm glad it's you," he said with that unsettling ease. I didn't respond to that. "Let's focus on getting you prepped for today's evaluation," I said, moving toward the monitor cart. He watched me as I worked, eyes following every movement I kept. My actions clinical and efficient, tightening the cuff around his arm, checking the oxygen levels, making quick notes on his chart. But then he spoke again softly, like it was a secret. "Just for me, I've been thinking about you." My jaw tightened. I finished attaching the last lead before answering, keeping my tone measured. "Mr. Harron, I'm here to help with your care. Personal comments are inappropriate during medical appointments." He didn't flinch. In fact, he looked almost amused. "I figured you'd say that." His eyes locked on mine, holding them longer than necessary. The tension in the room began to thicken, crawling under my skin before I could speak again. The door opened behind me. My body tensed instinctively, hoping for a doctor, but instead, a woman stepped in mid-40s, smartly dressed in business attire. Not a lab coat, sharp cheekbones, perfectly styled auburn hair. Her gaze swept the room like a scanner, moving from me to Mr. Harlan, pausing slightly longer on each of us than seemed polite. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything," she said coolly. Mr. Harlan blinked momentarily, caught off guard. "No, not at all." I straightened. I was just finishing up. "I'll give you both a moment." I didn't wait for her response. I slipped out of the room and into the hallway. My heart pounding, her voice was still echoing in my ears. That's his wife. I didn't need anyone to confirm it. The way she looked at me, she knew or she suspected something. Anything enough back at the nurse's station. I tried to distract myself by diving into chart updates and inventory logs, but my hands kept shaking every time I looked at the patient roster. I half expected to see his name again, and then like clockwork it arrived. "Mr. Harland has asked for you again tomorrow." I stared at the screen, barely breathing. I couldn't let this continue. Whatever this was, it wasn't harmless. I walked straight to Carla, our shift lead, and kept my voice low. "Can someone else take over Mr. Harlan's follow-up tomorrow?" I asked. He's made me uncomfortable. Carla's brow furrowed. "Do I need to escalate something?" "Not yet," I said quickly. "Just I'd prefer some distance, she sighed, tapping through the schedule. We're short tomorrow, but I'll try to move things around. I thanked her and went back to work, but the sense of relief never fully came. The next morning, I scanned the assignment board and felt my stomach drop. Still signed, I took a deep breath, gathered my things, and made my way down the hall. This time, I was prepared to shut things down. When I entered the room, Mr. Harlan wasn't lounging like before. He was sitting upright, staring out the window, his jaw set tight enough to know this was more than a misunderstanding, and it wasn't over. The rest of that day felt like I was moving through fog. I couldn't focus every chart. I updated every hallway. I walked down every patient I interacted with. I felt like I was being watched, not by cameras, not by staff, but by the weight of what had just happened. Mr. Harlan's words echoed in my head, even as I tried to shake them off. You didn't walk away the first time. And then there was her, his wife. That stare, cold, composed, but not clueless. She had seen something, or her enough to start drawing lines between things. I didn't want connected. I tried to stick to other wings of the clinic for the rest of my shift. Carla let me swap out of a few tasks, but we were understaffed and there was only so much dodging I could do. Still, I managed to avoid crossing paths with Mr. Harlan again, or so I thought at the end of my shift. I headed toward the staff exit bag slung over my shoulder, mind fixed on a long shower and silence. But just as I rounded the last hallway, there he was. Mr. Harlan, standing by the double doors coat on waiting. I stopped mid-step. My gut clenched. I just wanted to talk. He said, his tone casual, like this was a normal conversation between two co-workers. After hours, there's nothing to talk about, I replied quickly, glancing around. A few other nurses were still nearby. Thankfully, you don't have to be afraid of me, Marissa, he said, stepping slightly closer. I'm not afraid. I lied, but I am uncomfortable, and you're crossing a line. He didn't budge. His eyes narrowed just slightly. You think I don't see what's really happening here? Before I could respond, I heard a voice from behind Marissa. I turned. It was Marcus, one of the texts from imaging. He waved at me, smiling, oblivious to the tension. I smiled back automatically. Hey, I'll catch up with you in a sec. By the time I turned back to Mr. Harlan, his expression had shifted, blank, unreadable. He gave me the faintest nod another time. Then I didn't reply. I walked straight past him. Heart racing the next morning, I went back to Carla. I need to be taken off Mr. Harlan's case permanently, she frowned again. What happened? I hesitated. He's persistent. It's not professional. It's not safe. She nodded slowly, taking me more seriously this time. I'll escalate it to admin. I felt a little lighter walking out of her office. Maybe this would finally be over, but by the time I returned from a mid-M morning break, a new message was waiting for me on my tablet. Patient Harlan requesting Nurse Marissa marked urgent. I nearly threw the device across the room. I hesitated for several minutes. Should I ignore it? Forwarded to Carla, but instead something else took over. I needed to end this. Now I walked straight down the corridor toward exam room 4, shoulders squared, mind clear. If he tried anything again, I'd shut it down on the spot. I knocked once, then entered. He was already sitting at the edge of the bed, facing the window again. No hospital gown this time. He was fully dressed. His posture was rigid, his face unreadable. I need to speak with you, he said, not turning. I'm here for medical care only. Mr. Harlan, if this is about anything else, I'm not the person you should be talking to. He turned slowly, meeting my eyes. You think this has been easy for me, that I planned any of this? I don't care, I said firmly. You've made me uncomfortable. You've ignored boundaries. You've put me in a position I never should have been in. He stepped forward. You never reported it. I was trying to be professional. His voice dropped to a low, bitter tone. You didn't say, no, you didn't stop me. I stepped back instinctively. That doesn't mean anything, and you know it. He reached for my wrist again. Quick, just a touch, don't. I snapped. Pulling away instantly, his expression changed, something darker now, something smug. You're not going to report me, because you know how this will look. And then movement at the door. She was there again, his wife this time standing just outside the room, half in the shadows, but she had heard enough. I could see it in her face. Her eyes locked on me, then on him. Is everything okay? Here she asked, her voice soft, too soft. I stepped back. I was just leaving. I walked out past. Both of them. Didn't wait for response, didn't breathe again until I was back at the nurse's station. Whatever. I thought this was awkward, inappropriate, unprofessional. It was becoming something else. Something darker, and it wasn't over. I thought the moment in that exam room would be the end of it. I thought Mrs. Harland's quiet, steely gaze would act like a wall, finally putting space between me and whatever this was turning into. But I underestimated her, and I underestimated the depth of what I'd stepped into for the next few days. I did everything I could to avoid both of them. I shifted my schedule, volunteered for extended coverage in pediatrics, and made sure I didn't even walk past exam room 4. Still, every time my tablet buzzed, I expected to see patient Harren requesting Nurse Marissa like some kind of echo that wouldn't fade. And then one night, just as I was leaving the building through the staff exit, I felt it, that familiar heaviness in the air, a voice behind me. Marissa. I turned sharply. It wasn't him, it was her. Mrs. Harland standing alone by the front desk, her coat draped over one arm. She looked poised, calm, but her eyes held something sharper, like she'd already made a decision before I'd even opened my mouth. I need a word, she said, not a request, a command. I hesitated, scanning the hallway. The building was mostly empty now, just a few lights flickering and the soft sound of the janitor's cart squeaking down the corridor. Still, I nodded. She led me into a small, unused consultation room. Once the door clicked shut behind us, she turned to face me fully. I know what's been going on with my husband. My heart thumped. It's not what you think. I started already on the defense. Don't insult me, she said coolly. You're not the first, and if I have anything to say about it, you'll be the last. I stayed quiet, unsure what this was. A warning, a threat, but then her tone shifted. I'm not here to accuse you, I'm here to help you. That caught me off guard. She reached into her purse and pulled out a thick folder. She laid it flat on the small desk between us and slid it toward me. Inside were photographs, emails, screenshots, notes, medical reports, all tied to him, all tied to other women. He's done this before, she said, flatly, nurses, assistants, even our next-door neighbour's daughter. He manipulates, pressures, coerces, and when they push back, he twists it. I flipped through the folder, my stomach twisting tighter with every page. I stayed quiet for too long, she said. I didn't want the shame, the gossip. But I'm done watching him do this. I looked up at her, completely stunned. Why are you showing me this? She reached back into her coat pocket and pulled out a small silver key, laying it beside the folder. Because you're already part of it, she said, and you have 2 choices. Now walk away and pretend you never saw this, or help me stop him once and for all. I stared at the key. What does it unlock? A drawer in his home office, she replied, where he keeps copies of everything, letters, pictures, things he's used against people before. I've never had the nerve to take them. But maybe you can... Why me? I asked. Why not go to the police? Because if I go, he'll say I'm a bitter wife, that I'm exaggerating. He's good at making people doubt what they see. She looked me dead in the eye. But if you go, if you say something, someone will listen. The silence between us thickened. I'm not sure I'm ready to be part of this, I whispered. Then think about it, she said, turning toward the door. But don't take too long. He's already planning his next move. She left me there alone in the room, staring at the evidence of a man I never truly knew. The next few days were a blur. I kept my head down, stuck to the pediatric wing, and avoided the Harlands entirely. But the weight of that folder stayed with me. I kept it tucked inside my locker, sealed in a blank envelope. Every time I opened the door to change shifts, my eyes were drawn to it one night, As I sat in my car after work, the key lay in my palm. Cold. Real. What if she was telling the truth? What if he was planning something worse? I didn't know what I would do, not yet, but I knew this. I couldn't unsee what she'd show me. I couldn't unhear what he'd said, and I couldn't pretend to be okay, walking into that clinic every day. If I knew someone else might go through what I did, or worse, maybe I'd wait, maybe I'd act. But either way, something had already shifted inside me. And this time I wouldn't stay silent. We sincerely thank you for joining us for today's special story. If you enjoyed it, we kindly encourage you to subscribe to our channel. Give this video a thumbs up and share your reflections in the comments below. Your continued support inspires us to bring you more meaningful and engaging stories every single day, and click on the video above to see more inspiring stories. My dear.